Welcome. My name is Greg Twigg, and I'm going to be working with you today on some commercial branding and logos and icon work, and kind of how that relates to storytelling and in general the world of what we do here in media arts. We're not going to get into any technical building stuff, but we will touch upon a lot of some good ideas of how to keep in mind how we approach these areas, and what it might be like if you decide to go down a path where you are more design centric, perhaps. This week will be about those materials, and then we'll move on to another session where we get into more design for filmmaking and motion graphics and gaming. It's pretty awesome. It's pretty huge. I love it, and I hope you do too. Anyways, a little bit about my background. I am an artist and a designer who went through undergraduate school as a fine artist. My focuses were in painting, printmaking, and 3D work. And at that time, it didn't mean like what we think of as 3D anymore. It was the old school 3D, building things with wood and metal. Anyways, my my world has been in the digital culture and subcultures ever since I was probably in, this is going to be a stretch, middle school, where I was making my own skateboard stickers and little mini magazines and things like that, and doing work in high school for the high school magazine and yearbook. And by the time I was in college, there wasn't really a lot of support creatively for anything that was designed in a computer. And then I was fortunate to have a painting class, where my instructor allowed me to start bringing in things that I was creating in Photoshop, and put them up on the wall right next to someone's painting. And most of those students were pretty irritated by it, but I was just tickled. And we carried on conversations. And at that point, I kind of knew that that was the world I needed to live in. And from there, I moved into a graduate school, media arts. And my work continued in some ways as a still image designer, but also my work began to move, and I really got into motion graphics, motion design. I did films, in lots of aspects. As a cinematographer, an editor, I was a sound person. But I've always been basically rooted in graphics, and digital design. So that has blossomed in so many ways, in which after grad school, I worked at an ad agency for a bit, and I was the new media designer, and I was responsible for websites and animated banners and some commercials, even animations for packets that would be sent out to clients in different ways on CD-ROMs and DVD-ROMs. And remember those things, discs? You'd put them into a machine and something would happen. I really don't miss those days. I'm okay without it. But then I was brought into the realm of teaching and education at the university here. So my focus at the university since then has been the full gamut again. I was teaching film classes, and motion design classes, still image, digital design, Illustrator, Photoshop, and animation. Now doing 3D work, 3D modeling, 3D animation. Compositing. Maybe these are words you don't know about, and eventually, at some point, you'll learn what that means. But on the side, I am fully engaged in the community here, um, and regionally and nationally and internationally. It's awesome because you have so much power at your fingertips here with these technologies that we have, where you don't need to be in Hollywood to make movies. You don't need to be in Seattle to be part of good design. You don't have to be on the East Coast, to be part of some great things happening. You can be anywhere. And I'm really fortunate to call my anywhere Missoula, Montana. Good place to be in a culture and community that is just really supportive of artistic work, and a good place to raise a family and ride your bike, jump in a river, and see fewer people. I love it here. Some of my work that I do on the side has been print based or screen based. It's been motion, still, for documentary films and feature films, um, commercials, animations, web stuff. And that really is kind of the best part of what we do here in the realm of media arts, is that you don't have to be pigeonholed into a certain corner. You certainly can be, and there's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of the magic of what we do is we offer opportunities for students, colleagues, oh man, everybody to go down different paths and see where you click. And if you happen to click in a lot of them, it gives you a lot of opportunity to keep mixing it up. So today I just finished a project for a bank. It sounds so boring, but it was one of the funnest projects I've worked on in a while. And it was stop motion animation, working with different artists and photographers. I got to do the animation and the editing and the sound design, and then the packaging of it, because we have to make it now available for not just like an online delivery or a film or television delivery, but for Instagram, different format, Facebook, different format. And so, a lot of these things we just you kind of learn over time, and people say, "Hey, can you do this?" And you go, "Yeah, I can." Cool. And what I love about the work I do outside of school is that it brings it back in to what I do in school. And I try to share these experiences with my students. I'll break down projects. Sometimes I even have a project that if I get approval from the client or the producer, then I'll even have some of those projects available for the students in class to break down or look at my process, my organization. I'm a little type A, so I love labeling, naming, layers, and structuring things in a way that you can come back to in a year or two and be like, "Oh yeah, cool, I know where to go." And those are good habits, and I like to share them. I do a lot of logo work, t-shirt work. I'm all over the map, and it keeps me smiling. So does cooking. I love to cook. I am a designer in the kitchen. When I make a plate of food, even if it's just Wednesday night, I am going to put it in a lovely little arrangement on the plates, because when we see design and good design in any form, it makes us feel good, and it just makes the experience that we're in even better. So that's kind of the stuff that I'm going to talk about today. And I hope it's interesting and helpful. And I hope that it helps you get into an area that you might be able to access and use in your own creative ways. On that topic, why is design part of the school of visual media arts? it's important. It's important in a lot of ways. It's important in how we communicate our ideas, how we communicate with each other on teams, how we integrate our work to the phases of outside of the bubble that we're in. So that means like identifying yourself, branding yourself, communicating your work on the internet or on a website, or putting a portfolio together. But really, what it boils down to is that so much of what we do here is rooted in storytelling. And one thing that the faculty here has really sort of bonded on is that we are storytellers, and we're experience makers and sharers, and that plays a factor into everything we do. So from audio design and experiential design to game development, obviously the ones that we all easily fall for are filmmaking and animation. Um, Everyone's got a story to tell, and these things happen in all different facets. So it's important for us to give you opportunities to look into establishing good aesthetics, establishing just good habits and techniques, um, and finding ways to collaborate and bond all of the different areas that we do together in ways that are efficient, effective, and communicate well. And so the word design kind of goes into a lot of different areas, and my world and my time with you guys is going to be kind of focused just on a few, and that's fine because we want to give you opportunity to spend more detailed times with us in other classes, right? If that dog barks one more time, he's toast. Okay, so I'm gonna jump into some imagery and some things to look at, and now I get to get off camera and I'll read, and hopefully I'll do it in a way that doesn't sound like I'm totally reading. And if it comes across that way, I apologize. So I hope you enjoy this, and I've enjoyed just kind of putting some of this stuff together. It's good. It's good for me too. All right, here we go. So where do we start with design and storytelling? Basically, it starts with the fact that designers want and need to tell stories. And at the absolutely base level, design is about storytelling. And storytelling is the transmission of memory. We are all passed on a story verbally. We've read a good book. We watch a great movie or a show. We listen to an amazing song. And we even view paintings with our eyes. Or in today's case, for our conversation, we observe great design, all of which are imprinted in some magical part of our brains and likely stays with us forever. And the better ones are the ones that we are likely to share once again with someone in our lives, either spoken or performed or shared as a link, or we blog about it. A brand itself is also a story, and that is the responsibility of the designers behind the implementation of a brand for somebody. You are going to seek out data. You're going to ask questions either from potential users or potential clients, or folks who might end up buying what you need to sell. And you'll also gather information from the people behind the company name. You'll try to figure out what mission statements are and what sort of needs they feel are related to moving through with whatever this product might be. Every bit of communication for the story of the brand is another chapter. The logo, the brochure, a billboard, a web page, the packaging, the dog that barks in the background. And brands usually pull you into their story as a participating character. So we end up being a part of that brand story, otherwise known as the consumer. We eat it up. That's our job as from our end of things. My hope with you guys is that you end up on the other side where you get to create these stories and these experiences. Let's look at Apple as an example. I know it's kind of a cliche, but it's a good example. Apple has a branding story that focuses on emotions. The starting point is how an Apple product experience makes you feel. The Apple brand story is about lifestyle, imagination, liberty regained, innovation, passion, hopes, dreams and aspirations, and power to the people through technology. You can see right away how Apple has embedded its users or consumers into their story. You know these people. You might even be some of these people who feel like they are perpetually part of the Apple story, and they're very devoted, and it's almost like a cult. The Apple brand personality is also about simplicity and the removal of complexity from people's lives. When you open a new product from Apple, the first thing you see usually is a simple hello or welcome. And this is just another place where you are brought into their story. Even the way the company assembles its packaging is part of their brand story. And an important part of the Apple story is about being a really humanistic company with a heartfelt connection with its customers. And through these qualities, Apple is positioned as being extremely helpful to people and businesses as they, strive to achieve their goals. So when we hear a good story, it's believed that our body releases a hormone called oxytocin. And in a Forbes article, oxytocin is described as the drug of storytelling. So this also goes into how we experience story through visual things and physical things that we interact with. In this case, we're talking about design. So when we experience good stories or moments of stories in design, we feel good because of this chemical. And these moments are then locked into our brains for a lifetime. And then again, we are likely to pass that story on to people in our lives. The story can very well be a product or just a simple image or something. So, on to some simple images and icons that are all about telling stories. Very briefly, let's just look at a few that we should all be familiar with and get a sense of how important and efficient a good design can be. And can often help save lives or assist us in making good decisions. We'll start off with, some relatively familiar ones. This one, what do we know? Within a second, we know that this is telling us about an event that could possibly happen in our proximity. Someone might be crossing the street. We got to pay attention. We need to be safe and respectful citizens about it, right? Another one, while we're dealing with driving. Yeah, you are part of the story of wildlife right now. You are driving a car at probably a high speed, or at least a dangerously high speed, where if you hit something with some mass, like a lovely white-tail buck, that's not going to be a good outcome. So it's a reminder to sort of change the story that you are currently living. Slow down, be cautious, open your eyes a little bit. We have the no smoking sign. Everyone understands that red means danger, and the circle with the cross through it is as a warning. Do not do this for the safety of others, and probably for yourself. To start to mix things up a little bit, you've got some cool subculture that might be crossing the street. Either that's going to deal with the story of, again, let's be safe and cautious. It might even add an element to that story that you're currently creating as you live your life that might be like, I'm in kind of a cool place. People are recreating, people are enjoying themselves. It's laid back. A couple others, we have obviously the, caution symbol. And these are things that are pretty much universal no matter what language that you might speak. It's all about the visual. Poison. This is bad news. Don't eat it. If something happens, call somebody. And then sort of to wrap it up with something that is a little more positive, the recycle image. This is something that is, again, universal, and the story that you're participating in, hopefully, is one in which you're being a responsible human on our planet, trying to eliminate excessive waste. You're participating in something that is greater than what your own individual story is. It's something that's connecting to your community and to the world at a bigger scale. A cool little side note, the Recycle logo was created by a student who participated in a logo contest. And this is what they made, and it was brilliant. And it is used all over, everywhere. And it's also Creative Commons, like anyone can use it. There is no license on it, no one owns it. So that's why you see it used so much and also altered. You'll see it in different colors. You'll see it with strokes or textures, whatever. No one's going to bark at you about using that thing because it's good. Now, before we move into some specific dialogue about a couple logos, I just want to talk about a little bit of the psychology behind just color, right? So there are a lot of elements that go into design. In this case, we're dealing mostly with commercial design, but design is so many things. It can be architecture to user interface to filmmaking, right? But in all of those things, what's very important is that the designer understand the impact that color has on an audience, in particular a human audience. Not that everyone is the same, but it has been tested over and over again that a majority of human psychology is affected by color in different ways. Blues are going to give you the sensation of tranquility and security, peace and trust. Moving more into a different spectrum, turquoises are spiritual, they're healing. Greens are about freshness and environment, newness, wealth, and even healing, okay? Yellows, they're bright, they're sunny, they have good energy, they are warm, generally make you happy, and they also reflect on intellect. Weird side note is that babies hate yellow. So don't paint the baby room yellow because they'll cry. And there's just this weird switch that happens at some point through the youth where yellow brings on a different reaction to us mentally. You can kind of see that, purples are about royalty, and we get into more of the red spectrum with pinks. We're dealing with health, happiness, femininity, It's playful. Reds are about love and passion and energy and power, strength, it's heat, desire. Okay. Oranges, still kind of on that spectrum about courage and confidence, friendliness, success. And then as we start to move into more of neutral tones, browns are friendly. They also reflect on the earth and about outdoors. There is something about brown that gives you the sensation of longevity, and it's rather conservative. Going into gold, also wealth and wisdom. Um, Silver gets into more into a glamorous area. It's techy, it's sleek. And that's why we see a lot of silver and metallics that are in industrial design and technology design. So these are things that are always in the back of someone's mind when they're designing something that you're going to be looking at. So it's all about how our eyes are interpreting these energies, these colors, and what sort of results you might want out of it. And that sort of leads to just something that I enjoy thinking about and talking about, and that's how color can influence our palates and our sense of hunger. So let's have a look at just a couple of fast food chain logos. We're mostly all going to be familiar with a majority of these. There are some that we definitely look at and go, oh my God, I really need to make it to the West Coast, or oh, they have those, in New York or something. But what you're going to see right away is that the designers for these brands, and in particular these logos, have dialed in early on that the color spectrum of red, yellows, and oranges drives hunger in human psychology. And just seeing a sign with that color combination is most likely going to remind you about food. Obviously, the design is going to remind you about them in particular. So you might see a Burger King sign, get hungry, but you also are going to be driven toward that Burger King story that is about the way that you enjoy their, broiled burger over maybe a McDonald's burger. But maybe McDonald's, you have an experience where the fries are better. So you're already establishing stories and relationships with these brands. They know that they're going to trigger something as soon as you see those colors and their logo, and that it's going to bring you into a place where it possibly changes your daily story, the one that's happening at that current moment. And you might just be like, you know what, I'm going to go over and get some French fries or a milkshake. What you don't see in a lot of these is that there's not much departure from that color spectrum. A little bit of blue. And as we do know, blue brings in some different feelings that could possibly tie in with your experience there. Maybe it's like a refreshing soda, or it is that milkshake or frosty or something like that. And then you might see some greens, and greens are going to remind us about freshness. They're going to remind us about the earth. The Pizza Hut logo has that little tiny piece of green because they want you to think that, yeah, I'm going to go eat something, but I'm also probably maybe going to have something a little healthy on that pizza. Or the Del Taco has, the green mountains on it, and that definitely is in par with what, a hillside might look like. But that little bit of green has something, it sparks a little bit of that sense of, potential freshness or vegetables or something like that. So it's pretty neat to kind of observe these instances. And as you drive around or check out other places where you've got food signage, just start to take note of how many people are actually trying to get you into their story of food just through color. It's pretty amazing. So that brings us to a good spot to move into just some specifics of just two logo designs that I want to talk about and sort of break down what their story is and how they are really using some key elements in design that they hope and expect a passerby or a customer or whatever to lock into and think about more than just the name and what they do. So we're going to start with Federal Express. Federal Express started in the 70s, and their name was Federal Express. And their first logo was one in which you saw both words in their entirety together, but they did deliver it in an interesting way. And this is kind of fun to think about. Instead of Federal Express being linear and on a normal horizon that you might call like the 90-degree line or whatever, just a horizon line. What they did is they ended up tilting it at a level that is just one that we don't see too often, an angle, a degree that we don't see too often. And it's, I guess I don't know, I'd call it maybe like a 10-degree angle or something like that. And this is something that artists have known for a long time, and psychologists and designers, and that is that angles create some tension and they create movement. And in a good way, right? It's not like tension that makes you want to walk away. It's tension that sort of pulls you into it a little bit more. So the fact that this is on a slope already kind of brings a different energy to the plate. They are working with colors that have an influence on us of strength and loyalty. That's also part of this key too. And there's some really great negative space stuff going on here. But with design kind of growing and taking on some new understanding, some new edginess through the years, they transitioned to the logo that we now all know, and they also just they broke it down to an abbreviated version of their name. So it's no longer Federal Express; it's FedEx. It still means Federal Express, but their CEO made a decision to sort of rebrand, kind of recreate a new story about them, and the designers that were involved in this, played around with a lot of different options, and a very happy accident came along, and that was in typography. And typography, as we all know, is a really important part of design. Um, and and what ended up happening is the one of the lead artists in charge here was playing, with all caps and lower caps and combinations of them, and found out that the capital E and the lowercase x really had something special going on there, and ended up really being an integral part of communicating the story of what Federal Express is. And it's moving materials. It's giving you packages and letters and across the country, across the globe. And he found an arrow in the negative space between the E and the X. And it was an aha moment. And most people don't see it. They look at the FedEx logo and all they see is, blue Fed, orange X. Yeah, it's a FedEx truck. Yes, it's a FedEx package. But as soon as you can identify that there's an arrow in there, you're never not going to see it. And the wonderful thing about that arrow is that subconsciously, whether we acknowledge the fact that it's there or not, you think about movement. You think about a direction, right? Where something might be going. Hopefully it's going to your house, or hopefully it's going to somewhere else that you need it to go because you sent it. So it's a wonderfully smart part of this design that has given them tons of awards and lots of acclaim and knowledge to just being so simple and so brilliant at the same time, in a way that you don't have to scream it, but we all will know it as we, witness this thing. So fun little part of the story there, right? It's pretty cool. Um, then now I want to move on to another one, which is the Northwest Orient Airlines. And their logo originally started off with an oval band and all of the text in there, and this, old fashioned, airship that is still really cool. I love the retroness of it. But it's a lot of information, and your eyes are kind of going all over the place. There's no real area to land. The story still is about air travel, right? It's about the airplane. It's about flying somewhere. You get all of the information of the brand in there as far as what their names are, where they might be servicing. We get it. We're flying. But in order to minimize the amount of information and the noise and textures and just really clean it up, designers approach this with a really simple graphic and typographic solution that plays with not just with the occupied space, but also negative space. And we have an N, boom, that's the first thing we see. Then as our eyes settle, we realize that that little triangle wedge is part of a W, and then we find the W. So we get NW, and NW we know is Northwest. Now, there's no plane, there's no airlines, but there's something to do with what every airplane and pilot needs, and that is a compass. There's a little triangle, right? It's that wedge of the W that is pointing in a direction. It happens to be pointing into the northwest region of the circle. So instinctively, we think about orientation, direction, navigation. We get the NW, the Northwest. It's confined within a strong circle. Circles have a representation of just strength because you can't really break out of them. They're continuous. So this thing has like a lot of strength in there that is, pretty brilliant, but just so simple. And these are not things that we are meant to pick up right away. We're not supposed to look at this logo and go, oh, yeah, it's a compass and oh, cool, W, I get it. It's really about tapping into something that's a little bit deeper ingrained into our sort of blood memory of things that we've experienced through our lives, or maybe even some weird way of being passed down knowledge from our genes or something. But when you do see it and it's pointed out to you, you just kind of slap yourself in the head and you go, man, that's just brilliant. Like that's the kind of stuff that I want to be, making on my own. These are the ways that I want to be tapping into the minds of other people and telling them the story of whatever this experience might be with the company or the brand that I'm working with. So it's pretty neat. Like I find there are a lot of experiences like this that we can um, observe and pull into our own work. There's a million logos out there. There's more than that, and a lot of them are garbage, but some of them are very smart. And the way that you can actually take a look at and break down what are they trying to get to me? Like what's the story here? What's the influence that they're trying to make on me? Then that only makes us stronger designers in the long run too. So the next ones that we approach as part of our own design process might have a little bit of that ingenuity or sleekness or strength or undertone that can really bring something out that is special, right? Cool. Wow, that was a lot. I hope that that was helpful, insightful, and inspirational, and motivating. But really, like I think that there were some good moments of understanding that communication and storytelling is happening in ways that sometimes you don't even think about or notice. But when you're on the inside and you can start um, approaching your own design, your own work in a way that you do know that it is about that connection and that impulse to pass a story on to somebody else who will pass that story on to somebody else. And that's a great sign of success. Absolutely. Um, I hope to see you in some other classes and look forward to working with some of you. And I imagine at some point you'll you'll be collaborating on some really cool projects, and I'll see your name in some credits somewhere or receiving an award. Not that that needs to happen. We should just be making art too, right? Okay, well, take care and stay in touch. Stay healthy. Take care. I think I said that already. Did I say take care? Anyone? There's no one here.